I'm Andre, I was once in your shoes, and I'm now SVP of Partner Development at Sony Music. So Sony Music is heavily embroiled in the digital music space now, right? So when I started working here 10 years ago, there was a transition happening from the physical media business, from selling CDs and records, and then it moved into downloads and all of that. Now we're heavily in a streaming marketplace. And so the way the music market has developed is we basically have 10 really massive partnerships where pretty much all of the music consumption happens in the world, and those are really, really meaningful partnerships for us, companies like Apple and Spotify and the collection of Google and YouTube businesses. So those need to be account managed every day to try to make sure that we're getting the best exposure possible for our artists and for our labels, to give them the best chances of success, and the same for the company. Right, yeah, so no, the answer is no. I actually, when I had a sort of prolonged history of not really knowing what I wanted to do. So I finished my law degree, which was basically the best subject I could get into, so that's why I chose it. It wasn't necessarily an aspiration to do law. Got to the end of it, had a great time, still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and at that point went into management consulting. So I moved down to London, I worked for a big consultancy for 4 years, and it was just a way of kind of prolonging the choice of what I actually wanted to do. I thought I'd learn about business and kind of see lots of different sides of different companies and learn from that. But honestly, I was pretty bored. And so kind of 3 to 4 years into that, I really started trying to plan a different career direction. Really started to focus in on what I personally was passionate about, which was a question I hadn't really asked myself crazily up until that point. And so when I really started to kind of get away from doing the best subject or the academics or getting good exam results or whatever it may be, I realized that my passion was really, there was a handful of things that I was super passionate about, and above all was music. And so then I started to really realize that maybe that was the path that I should orient my career in. But when I first started 12 years ago, it was just unbelievable. The conversations, and just this is still sort of persisted through my career. If there ever is any point of tension or any conflict, the thing that that you can always bring it back to is that person is here because they love music. And so we have lots of different departments and lots of different cultures, and this is a big, in the States, this is a record label that covers, we have an office in Nashville that deals with country music, which doesn't mean a lot to a European like myself, but underneath that there's a common core love. So it's a different culture, but there's a common bond there. And so all of the different departments, they have their own little thing going on, but that one consistent thing underneath it all is something that is a really positive thing and brings a lot of positivity to people's lives and day to day. Yeah, so it wasn't easy to make the transition. When I was consulting and I sort of had the light bulb moment that I wanted to get into music, I started trying to network as much as possible within the space, but I didn't have a lot of contacts. So that took a minute to find people to talk to. And then when I did start meeting people, I realized that my CV was really, it was not at all appealing to people working in the creative industries. So what I actually did was I started going to an additional night school course when I was working in London on a consultancy project. So I started learning a little bit about the fundamentals of the music business. And then I did some small things that were just little voluntary projects for small up-and-coming digital music companies that were operating at the time in London. And then combining kind of those voluntary projects with a little bit of education, I completely reworked my resume so that actually some of the things, like my day-to-day job, actually became kind of like a strap line, and really I made it much more music focused. And so I kept persisting and I did all kinds of things just to try to meet whoever I could. And eventually making those connections was the thing that turned it for me. And I was very fortunate in that I met somebody who was able to assist me greatly in making a successful application when a good job came up that I saw on the major labels. And it was really game changing for me. And when I arrived and finally got that first job, I felt an incredible sense of pride because I'd figured out what I was passionate about, and I'd kind of turned the boat around a little bit. Yeah, it was a really, really positive experience. Yeah, well, for me, when I look back on my life, I just think it's crazy. It's astounding that I didn't really ask myself until I was about 24 or 25 what it was that I wanted to do. And so I, spent a lot of my life obsessing about getting good exam results or trying to, do the best thing or trying to, earn the most money. And I never once asked myself until my mid-20s, like, what do I actually care about? What am I really passionate about? And so, doing that was completely life-changing for me. And then it wasn't easy to make that change, but once I'd figured out what I wanted to do, then it was, I had a goal to work towards. And so that was, that for me is absolutely it. My key piece of advice to young people is to focus on what you care about, what you're passionate about, what you love, because all of that other good stuff will follow. If you look at the truly most successful people in the world, they never started out doing it for the money. They did it because they love something, and typically those things follow if you truly do love it. So my name is Andre. I was once in your shoes, and I'm now. I'm sorry. I'm now. Do you want me to say, like, I'm now working at